Good evening, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. And it is December 20th. Can you believe that? Already December 20th, 2022, almost Christmas, almost the new year is here. And we have a lot to talk about indeed. There's so much stuff going on right now. And sometimes the inaction is just as important as the action that's taking place, because we find out really that there's not much going on in some cases. And I know they're working on it, but obviously, several cases that we've been following here. Obviously, the Idaho college homicide case, people thought that there was going to be a break in the case. They found this Hyundai Elantra in Eugene, Oregon. And apparently they just issued a press release, hot off the presses, from the Idaho Moscow. Let's not get that confused with Moscow. Homicide update. Dun, 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 dun. The Moscow Police Department is providing the following information to update the public on the known facts surrounding the 4 murders that occurred on November 13th in Moscow, Idaho. There have been numerous questions about the leadership in this investigation. Let me be clear. This is the Moscow Police Department's investigation, and I am the chief of police. The decisions are mine and mine alone. I have an excellent command staff with over 90 years of combined experience overseeing the investigations, daily operation, and I select who runs the investigative team, said Moscow Police Chief James Fry. We are supported by highly trained and experienced personnel from the Idaho State Police and the FBI. Their continued resources and knowledge are vital to our success. Our investigation units work under a unified structure and have the autonomy to move forward and solve this case. Despite statements about my team, we remain focused on solving the murder of the 4 students, to seek justice for them, their families, and to help our community heal. Investigators continuing processing and working through more than 7,650 emailed tips, 4,313 phone tips, 4,583 digital media submissions, and have conducted over 250 interviews. Investigators believe someone has information that adds context to what occurred on the night of the murder and continued requesting additional pictures, videos, and social media content. Our focus remains on the investigation, not an individual's activity displayed in the tip. Whether you believe it is significant or not, your information might be the one of the puzzle pieces to help solve the murder. Digital submission of tips and leads will not be publicly disclosed due to our ongoing commitment to keep information private, and details may be pertinent to the ongoing criminal investigation. Investigators are aware of a Hyundai Elantra located in Eugene, Oregon. We are working with the local jurisdiction to determine if the vehicle is related to our case as required by law. Several Moscow police body camera videos were requested and released through the public records request process. The original release of any video by this agency is the official version, and circulated videos cannot be verified as authentic or unedited. Rumor control. Another video believed to be taken on the night of the murders at a local downtown business is known to investigators. Investigators have identified an individual called Adam in the video, and he is cooperating with the detectives. Progress continues to locate the 2011 through 2013 Hyundai Elantra, believed to be in the immediate area of the King Road residence during the early morning hours of November 13th. Investigators believe the occupants may have critical information to share regarding the case and have identified over 22,000 vehicles. If you know of or own a vehicle matching this description, or know of anyone who may have been driving this specific vehicle on the days preceding the day of the murders, please forward that information to the tip lines. No suspects have been identified, and only vetted information that does not hinder the investigation will be released to the public. We encourage referencing official releases for accurate and updated progress. All press releases or information are available at the Moscow Police Department. Previously reported, the white Elantra is believed to have been in the immediate area. We just talked about that. Tips are being collected. Oh, I thought there was something in here about that's not the car. Understanding, let's see. The Moscow Police Department thanks our community for their continued support, understanding of the limited information that we can share, patience, and during that time. Yeah, so nothing on there. So nothing about the tip saying that there is nothing related other than they're aware of the car and it has been impounded. Now, I'm sure, since the car's been abandoned, but out of an abundance of caution, somebody is going to try to get a search warrant so that they can get into that car. And also it's visible in plain view, so they don't necessarily need a search warrant for that, to simply get the vehicle identification number. Easy enough, right?
They say it in the first page.
What did I miss that? Did I totally miss that? Yeah, we were aware the vehicle was involved in a collision, subsequently impounded. The vehicle is registered out of Colorado, and the female. Oh, how did I miss that? Update 4:30 p.m. Investigators aware of the Hyundai Elantra located in Eugene, Oregon, and have spoken with the owner. The vehicle was involved in a collision and subsequently impounded. The vehicle is registered out of Colorado, and the female owner is not believed to have any relation to any property in Moscow, Idaho, the ongoing murder investigation. The public is asked to stop contacting the owner. Well, there you have it. There you go. Updated 4:30. It's not the car. Man, but you'd think by the tone of the chief's letter there, he must be watching CrimeTalk. Okay, for all those people, no, he doesn't have time. But, in our video that we put out today, I was wondering, the FBI must have taken over. They have 62 agents now from the FBI, probably not all special agents, probably analysts. And I think 2 or 3 people from their behavioral analysis unit to try and figure out and crack the code. And I get it. The police have a difficult job. It's always more difficult when everybody's watching, making your every move. And, this is why you have to be so careful. I think we put the video up that we put up today, and there were people in the comments saying, oh, it's related to this person and this person. And you can't just go and say stuff that you have no information about. That's how people's lives get ruined. You have to be super smart about it. I mean, it was stuff like, oh, the owner is this person, it's this person. Next thing you know, someone could have their entire name, their life run through the mud on something that's not true. You have to take it slow when it comes to this and make sure you get it right. But, everyone wants to be first. I don't necessarily want to be first. I want to be right when we do that, when we get it right. So what can you say about that? Here we are, weeks into that, and no suspects, nothing any closer than they were from November 13th. Not criticizing the police, but you have to really wonder, is this person such a skilled criminal to go into this house with 3 floors, right? Past the people on the first floor, or go in the second floor, I guess what they're saying, go up to the 3rd floor, do all these terrible things, and walk out and leave nothing? I mean, it's unbelievable. I don't know. I always go back to this quote. It was written by an attorney that I think he's retired. I know he's retired now, but it's such a great quote. But it comes from the FBI manual, and it says, and obviously you want to update it today for DNA, but it's so spot on, right? Wherever he, the criminal, steps, whatever he touches, whatever he leaves, even unconsciously, will serve as silent witness against him. Not only his fingerprints or his footprints, but his hair, the fibers from his clothes, the glass he breaks, the marks he leaves, the paint he scratches, the blood he deposits or collects, all of these and much more bear mute witness against him. This is evidence that does not forget. It is not confused by the excitement of the moment. It is not absent because human witnesses are. It cannot perjure itself. It cannot be prejudiced, be influenced by suggestion, by falsely reinforced identity. It cannot be wholly absent. Only human failures to find it, study it, and understand it can diminish its value. And this is, you have to admit, whoever did this horrible crime, you really have to wonder, are they that good? That they left nothing behind? Nothing behind, nothing. Let's face it, this is top priority there. I mean, these occurred November 13th, these homicides did, quadruple murder. Biggest thing that's ever happened in Moscow, Idaho. Probably the biggest thing that's happened in Idaho since the Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell matters. Everybody wants to know what's going on. It's getting top priority. You got the state police, local police, and the FBI working on it. There's literally like 100 police working on it, pretty much nonstop, right, for the last 4 weeks. And they can't find anybody. Nobody said anything like, hey, I was talking to Joe over here and over a beer, and, he started rambling about some things. Nothing left behind. No apparent DNA. Nobody dropped their wallet at the scene. They would leave, this great tip. Nothing. And I'm not criticizing the police because, frankly, they're dealing with it. If they could solve it, they would do that. I'm sure there's nobody that wants to make an arrest more than the police, obviously. But you got to make sure you get the right person or persons before you just jump in there. But it really makes you wonder, like, this guy's good. Assuming he's a guy, assuming it's only one, could be, don't want to make too many assumptions. But for whatever reason, I mean, they're the ones that, this person's good. I mean, maybe they're just lucky, but that's just the way it is. So we can talk about that. Obviously, the big news is the police said the Hyundai Elantra, white Hyundai Elantra found in Eugene, Oregon, is not related to anything in Moscow, Idaho whatsoever. And like I said, we talked about it. I mean, we put the story up, like, kind of the gist of our video today is, man, you got all these FBI agents. Are they taking it over? And then the police chief says, I'm in charge. I'm not saying he's watching Crime Talk, but that just kind of seems like a little bit of a coincidence. Maybe it's just me, right? I don't know. Just saying. It says, is there a break in the case? They have this Elantra. There it is. Then they come out right before we come on. And what do they say? It's not the case. Why? They've already run the VIN. They've talked to the owner. It's registered out of Colorado. Isn't Eugene, Idaho? Isn't that where the college is located? I think one of the University of Oregon schools up there. But the reality of it is, it has nothing to do with it. So they're right back to square one. They're in Moscow, Idaho, and it's very interesting. Let's just say it's very interesting. Now we still have obviously other cases. We've got the Delphi murder that we can talk about, and then we're going to take some questions. So if you have a question or a case you want to discuss, I know one of the earlier people that signed in, they left a quote, and they want to talk about the Shanquilla Robinson. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly or not, but Ms. Robinson was from Charlotte, North Carolina, found dead in Mexico, and basically doesn't seem like people are doing much of anything as far as investigating the case. Seems a little circumstantial. We can talk about that as well. We got the Delphi murder. Some new information came out this week. No, I guess it was last week. Jeez, it all kind of runs together. Last week, saying that this is all some sort of child ring going on, and it's all related, and that's going to come out. Now, color me a little bit skeptical, okay? The people that are alleging this, say they have inside information. We'll have to wait and see. I truly believe that if the police thought that was the link between all of the deaths of Libby and Abby, that they would have put that in the affidavit for the arrest warrant. I really cannot think, if the police know about the information, that they would leave it out of the affidavit for the arrest warrant. They're like, oh, we're just going to get enough to get him back here, and we'll get somebody arrested, and then we'll really throw the crux of all our evidence against him. It just doesn't work that way. So I'm talking about that as well. And I need to say thank you to everybody that watches, because this happened. My goal, I think the goal was to get to at least to 225 by the end of the year.
Mhm.
Ta-da! We did it. Thanks to all of you. So this is a good time to remind you, if you haven't done so, subscribe, like, hit that little bell so you receive notifications. But we went over 225,000. I think we actually did it over the weekend on Saturday or Sunday, and we're already up to 225, 420, I think, is what we're up to now. So thank you very much for doing that. Because, I mean, I don't know if you ever started a YouTube channel. I mean, everybody thinks that everybody who starts a channel immediately goes viral, and you get 1 million subscribers, and you quit your day job and all that kind of stuff. But it really just doesn't really happen that way, I assure you. I mean, there's always exceptions to the rule, just like, you could drop out of Harvard and start an online company and be worth billions and billions of dollars. But I assure you that's the exception to the rule. So yeah, that's just the way it is. So I want to thank every one of you, and also our Patreon members, because they help support this. And I know nobody likes ads, but the good thing for you all is that the horrible YouTube people, they demonetize everything. And since we do a daily video, all of our videos get usually monetized the following day when they're not getting that initial push. And so, you think, oh, Scott, he must be just rolling in the dough when it comes to Crime Talk. Yeah, no. When you look and you see your video made $20 because YouTube just monetized it, 30 hours after it went up, and literally you look, wow, that video made $20. Even though it had a lot of views, it just doesn't work that way. So I want to appreciate all of you for what you do. Thanks for our Patreon people. It helps keep the lights on here for Crime Talk. And Frank, the hardest working man in show business, it helps helps me be able to keep Frank around, right, Frank? I mean, because I'm just going to start editing videos by myself, right? Like, that's going to happen. No. That too is harder than you think. Thank you for being so consistent in bribing us. Oh, bringing. Okay. Well, we try to be consistent and bring you the news. So let's talk about briefly. I know that most people probably don't care about this. So last week we didn't do our live. You say, where were you, Scott? You better have been on your deathbed. It must have been an emergency. Where were you? I've had people say, where's my Tuesday night live? Where's my Patreon show? I missed you, Scott. I didn't get to make dinner listening to you. It's all true. I get these. I thank you very much for that. So I had to fly down to a little jurisdiction. All right. And we had to do what they refer to as a proffer. All right. And that is where your client goes and talks to the authorities. But like we always tell you, and this is what anybody will tell you, any attorney worth their salt is going to tell you to shut your mouth, since anything you say can and will be used against you. Unless, of course, you're in the negotiation process and, you know, the government wants to hear what your client has to say. You want to get the benefit of that. Usually it's in federal cases because you usually can't get below those mandatory minimums unless you get what they refer to as a 5K 1.1, which is a motion filed by the government saying, Judge, this guy's cooperated. Let's get him below that mandatory 10-year minimum because we think he's a good guy, provided information about the facts of this case, as well as maybe some beneficial information. So whatever he's going to get, Judge, let's drop that, jump it off by 20, 30, 40% sometimes. Big numbers. And if you're going to prison, that's a big number. You want the least amount of time as possible. So like all things, in the government, they rarely go as planned as possible. Fly in. This is going to be great. Had a little bit of delay. We had a storm here last week. Got a little delayed. But I'm thinking I'm still going to make it on time. No worries. And as soon as I start getting cell service back is coming in, land, like, hey, Scott, got a problem. Call me as soon as you land. I'm like, okay, well, I guess it's going to be a quick trip. Just going to turn right back around, head to Denver. No. Sometimes the government doesn't always move as quickly as they want to. So they were supposed to bring my client from one facility to another so we could do this proffer. But I wanted to get this done, and my client wanted to get it done. So we go, and I said, you know what? Don't worry about it. I'm here all day. And if I don't get to do my Tuesday night live, I'm just going to blame it on the government. So that's what I'm doing. So it really wasn't my fault. Think of it as the problem of the United States government. So anyway, we're like, all right, we're in this town. It's only an hour drive. We can do this. I'm like, all right. So we go there, get to the new facility. And, everybody's checking in and it's me. And then you got, attorneys for the government and all these agents. All right. And it's like, hey, how you doing, guys? Didn't we work on a case? Yeah. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Blah, blah, blah. Typical stuff. And we're going into the detention facility there. And, we're getting the thumbs up from everybody. We don't have to do security. It's, it's kind of a smaller jurisdiction. Like, hey, how you doing? Let's go in there. And we're in the Sally Port and we're all buckled in there. And I said, hey, Sheriff, I just want to make sure, since I'm not law enforcement, I've got my phone. Is that okay? I don't want to break any rules. Is that all right? He goes, oh, no, phone's fine. You guys are going to be in this room back here. It's all good. I go, oh, okay. And then the head of the facility goes, hey, gents, anyone got any weapons they need to check? Because right before you go in to the jail, right at the Sally Port, they have a little lockbox where everybody can put their firearms in. And you would have thought this was something out of a movie. Literally, it was like a comedy. They're like, oh, yeah, hold on a second. And I swear, we got 3 or 4 agents there. They start pulling off from their hip. They start pulling out knives from their pockets and their pants and their vests. They're pulling off ankle holsters for their fire. It looked like something like you couldn't have made this stuff up. I'm like, you guys are coming to see one of the good guys, like me and my client. Imagine what it's like when they're coming for you if they think you're a bad guy. I mean, I think there were probably, that point there, probably half a dozen knives, probably 5 or 6 firearms, and who knows exactly what else they may have pulled out, but it was hilarious. They're pulling up their pant legs, taking off their ankle holsters, they're pulling guns out. Blah, blah. I mean, it was like, oh my God, if I could get a video of this, this would be so great. Because I'm just standing here thinking, guys, if I had known this is, how you were gonna, come to the party, I would have, brought something myself as well. Jeez. But it was good, and we had a good conversation. But given the fact that we got started late, we had to drive, and we had to get it done, we went late. So the time I would have driven back from the facility back to the nearest town where I was able to get a room, it just wasn't going to be possible. And but so I apologize for that. But at least, my client, we had to do lawyer stuff. That's always got to come first. We did what we had to do. Hopefully got a good story out of that. Like I said, it was hilarious. Just guns everywhere. Oh yeah. They were ready to go in with them. Like, it didn't ever cross anybody's mind, right? I'm worried about my little old cell phone here. I just want to make sure I don't bring my cell phone in. Oh yeah, you guys gotta check out any guns or anything. Oh yeah. They start unbuckling. They're pulling up their pant legs. I'm just knives are coming out, like multiple knives. These guys are loaded for bear. It was gay. It was great. It was great, and they were good. I mean, they're. I have no problem with the line guys of all the alphabet agencies that were there to do it. They're just doing their job. We're doing ours. We don't want to see what happens. Everyone's doing what we need to do. I see a question here. Let's see what's this say. Scott, the Chris Watts case and the guilty plea 4 years ago. As a lawyer who has only practiced in Illinois and longer do, I don't understand why Chris Watts wasn't asked under oath to testify and prove up. Good question, Linda. He doesn't have to. He's pleading guilty. So the court engages in that colloquy. It happens in just about any case. Anytime a court takes a guilty plea, the court has to advise them under Rule 11 in most states, and that's what it is in the federal system as well. They have to advise them of the Rule 11. Make sure they're aware of what they're pleading guilty to. Understand the rights they have and the rights they're giving up and the possible penalties. That's all they need to do. Now, the one thing I wish what's the word I'm looking for? In the Chris Watts case, and this is going old school here because that's been 4 years ago. That's when we started this show. But is the court, and a lot of courts do this, and they'll say, particularly in federal court, in state court, not so much, but I wish they did. Old school judges will say, all right there, Mr. or Ms. Defendant, I've advised you of the rights that you have, i.e., you have a right to enter a plea of not guilty. You have a right to set the matter for a jury trial. At that jury trial, the prosecution would have to bring in witnesses. You'd have a right to subject those witnesses to cross-examination. At a right to a trial, you have to make the prosecution prove each and every element of the offense beyond a reasonable doubt. If they failed to prove just one element of that offense, it would be the jury's job to say not guilty. At a trial, you have a right to assist your attorney in picking a jury. You have a right to present a defense that you might have. You have a right to subpoena witnesses. And if those witnesses would not come, you could ask for the court's assistance in subpoenaing those particular witnesses. At a trial, Mr. Defendant or Ms. Defendant, you have a right to testify or not to testify. And if you chose not to testify, the judge would instruct the jury that they could not use your silence against you in any way. And that decision to testify is yours and yours alone. Certainly, you want to listen to the advice of your attorney, but neither the attorney, the prosecution, the defense, the judge, the family member, nobody could keep anybody from testifying or choosing not to testify. That is their solemn decision. And if you go to trial and you lose, you have a right to an appeal to a higher court to see if some legal error was made. When you plead guilty, though, except for your right to have an attorney, you're going to give up all those rights. So there'll be no jury. There'll be no witnesses. There'll be no cross-examination. There'll be no decision to testify, and there will be no appeal. They always do that. And a good judge will say, let me tell you, and these are the maximum penalties that you could face. They always got to tell you the worst case scenario. And that decision is up to the judge as to what the person's going to get. And the good judges will say, do you understand your rights? You do. You're free and voluntary. You're thinking clearly. Yes, I am. This is what I want to do. You sure? A good judge will almost make it sound like they're trying to talk them out of a guilty plea and say, why wouldn't you want to go to trial when you've got all these great rights? Why not? Let's go do it. It's wonderful. Like, no, I understand. Boy, that sounds like a lot of fun. But no, I think I'm going to go with my deal. And then a good judge will say, in your own words, tell me what you did that was unlawful. And I wish the judge in the Watts case would have done that. Tell me what you did. Oh, well, I killed my wife, Shanann. I had no legal permission or justification to do that. I killed my daughter, my two daughters, etc. In your own words, on the record, that is what he would have to do. And that's what I wish the judge would have done. But some judges don't do that. All right, how do you plead guilty? Good enough for them. Sometimes the judge will say, oh, I see that there is a affidavit for probable cause. May I rely upon that? Or will you waive a factual basis? Most people will say, we waive a factual basis, judge, which is kind of you're saying, judge, let's not get into the facts. It's going to take the deal. Let's move along to the next case. You don't get to do that in, for example, federal court. That's what I love about federal court. If you have a client who's not going to do it, say I did it, judge will be like, all right, let's get a trial date. Let's go do this thing. You're like, yeah, let's go do this thing. Well, sometimes. Depends if you have a case. But I've seen cases where even recently, it was a case I was watching, and the judge asks the defendant, tell me in your own words what you did. Well, I didn't do anything was wrong. I was just following orders. The judge just said, all right, well, I'm not going to take a guilty plea from somebody that doesn't believe that they are in fact guilty. Let's set this matter down for trial. But of course the DA, well, let me explain, Your Honor. And what the prosecution explained in that particular circumstance wasn't that somebody knowingly did something. You should have done something in the future. You should have known better. That's not the elements of the offense, but the judge wanted the case to go through. So he's like, well, we're going to go ahead and do that. And my first thought was, coward, just say. The client's not going to say what they did and accept full responsibility for it. Why do we want that to take place? We don't want people who are not guilty pleading guilty. Bottom line. But people do it all the time. Oh, I'm going to plead guilty to get out of custody. But you're innocent. I know, but I can't stay in custody. But why would you plead guilty to something you didn't do? We're not talking about a traffic ticket, right? We're talking about something, but people do it. Well, I just got to get out. I've got a criminal history. It doesn't matter. Man, why would you plead guilty to something you didn't do? So hopefully that explains your questions. Hello, Scott. I'm Australian. And we say lawyer. What kind of attorney are you? Michelle? Well, I do criminal defense work. And it's hard to believe. Can you believe this? I cannot believe it. It's amazing to me. So in January 1 will be the start of my 23rd year having my own practice. And it used to be me, myself, and I. And now we have 5 attorneys plus staff, etc. And it'll also be the start of my 28th year of doing criminal defense. 28 years. That's a long time. Done a lot of cases. A lot of cases. And so when I talk about criminal defense cases, I, speak from somebody that's done it. Whether it's a federal case, a state case, racketeering, homicides, death penalty, been there, done those. So I'm not just sitting here saying, oh, this is what, I have no idea what happens. I've done it. I've represented those difficult clients. I understand the way things should be done. Like I said, going back to the Idaho case, they're at 36 days now, I think. And nothing. The chances of this case getting solved, short of a confession, or B, some physical evidence, or unless there's co-conspirators coming forward, it's going to be difficult, I think, to solve this. I don't care how many state police, local police, FBI agents you have on this case. I hope they find it. Nobody wants, think about it. This is the part that nobody seems to be concerned about. And I just don't understand why. People are more focused on, well, who's Adam? Who drives that white Elantra? And I get it. Those people are thinking, well, maybe that's the person. There is someone out there that has killed 4 people, presumably while they slept, or if they arose, became awakened during the attack, with a knife. As far as we know, a knife. A K-bar knife is the knife that the police are stating that they believe was used. I have a K-bar knife. It's not a great knife. You see all the big Rambo knives out there? Heck, I have like I said, I have a K-bar. When I was in the military, when I was a young enlisted guy, everybody had a K-bar on their war belt. You used it for digging holes, opening cans. But for the most part, it was pretty useless. They didn't stay sharp very long. It's just not a great knife. Okay. I have a knife on my jacket now when I go fly fishing. It's like this. It's a bear knife, like the guy that Bear, the survival guy. But it's great. And the thing is, it's sharp, super, super sharp. But you will notice with a knife, it is not a great weapon in which to attack somebody. That little K-bar, Frank, do we have a picture of that K-bar we can put up? Now, this is not the K-bar, obviously. This is a picture of a K-bar. But as you can see here, that's the knife. Okay. It's got the little pointy end, sure, but it's not very sharp. And if you were coming in overhead, assuming that somebody was lying in bed, and you came in overhead, right? This is your knife. You come in, you're going to have a super strong grip on that knife, and you're going to have to hold it real tight, because what's probably going to happen when it starts hitting flesh and bones and things of that nature, it's going to come to a stop. And unless you're holding that knife really sharp, it's going to come down and you're going to cut yourself. It's not a perfect, it's not a good knife, so to speak, in my humble opinion, that somebody would necessarily want to use. I'm not exactly sure how they believe they identified that particular kind of knife. You know, it's just I don't know. And 4 people. So we have a quadruple murderer out there, and the police have no clue. So is this person just lucky, or is this person just good? I don't know. But either way, it's a little scary because you don't know if this person's living amongst the Moscow, Idaho community, or if they've left, and where are they going to be next? I get it. People want somebody to charge, but the more important thing is you've got a quadruple murderer running loose and you have no idea. Not a suspect at this point. With 100 police officers and state police and FBI agents, okay? And the reason why I want the FBI agents in there, it's not because they're any better at solving crime. It's not like they're any smarter. I mean, they like to think they are because most of them are like accountants and stuff. But you know, no, they just have more resources. That's what it boils down to. You know, in my humble opinion, if you want somebody to solve something, to go into the deep, so to speak, to find out what the hell is going on, because somebody knows. And don't get me wrong, Moscow, Idaho, but I don't know, you know, if there was something from the underworld, so to speak, drugs, who knows? You know who you need on that? ATF and DEA. Those guys are not afraid to go get their hands dirty, so to speak, use confidential sources. I mean, those guys get stuff done. They get stuff done. FBI, they're just, you know, with one exception to I had an ATF guy on the stand once, and he was, you know, oh, I visited ATF, and he did this trace, you know, he was the local agent handling the case, and I started, you know, it was clear he was a little inexperienced, so we started going through. Why don't you go ahead and point out various parts of this firearm? And I'm like, and why don't you go ahead and point to the butt of the weapon? And literally, he was looking at it. Oh, wow, the butt. How about the stock? The stock. Oh, didn't know. And people in the jury were like, "This guy's ATF." It was so good. It was so good. We got to put this one up. Wayne Johnson. Being a criminal defense attorney is the most respectable job in the public eye, but they're absolutely necessary. And I have nothing but respect for most criminal defense attorneys. Well, thank you, Wayne Johnson. I agree. I mean, whoever invited like a securities attorney to a cocktail party or a, you know, Christmas holiday party, whatever, and said, "Hey, what's going on at work? Anything real interesting?" No. Criminal defense guy, "Hey, what you working on?" "Oh, you know, got that double homicide case going on. Ooh, yeah, it's tough. Got a couple other things. Yeah, you probably saw this one in the paper too. Yeah, we were involved. Yeah. And we defend everybody's rights on a daily basis. Who wouldn't love your local criminal defense attorney? They're the ones that create good law. They're the ones that say, hey, government, you can't do that. I'm objecting. And then it goes up on the courts, because courts, let's face it, the judges usually go along with the prosecution. And then it goes up, and, you know, not every time, But when it does get reversed, it gets reversed. We just had a case reversed on a homicide trial. I can't wait to show back up in that courtroom. Hey, Judge, remember when we gave that little speech about jury instructions? We said that it's obviously a mere scintilla of evidence, which gets us that jury instruction as it relates to self-defense. And I made my strongest argument, not only what the evidence was, but I said, Your Honor, cases come back on jury instructions issues when the courts don't give the instruction when there's a mere scintilla of evidence. But if you give it and the jury rejects our argument, no issue. But if you don't give that jury instruction, I'm telling you, Your Honor, it's going to be an issue. And guess what? It came back. Guess who was right? All right, let's see a show of hands. Who do you think it was? That's right. This guy said, Judge, you got to do it. And the beautiful thing is this judge, it's about the third time he's been reversed on appeal just on my cases. So I can imagine there's a hell of a lot more because he doesn't want to follow the law. And now it's coming back. And we're going to do it again. And I'm going to get that instruction and I'm going to win, which is probably why the judge didn't give it, because he knew if he got the instruction, we were going to win. So, like I said, little criminal defense attorneys, people may hate us. Everybody hates us till they need us. And then they're all of a sudden, you're the best guy in the world. But just remember, nobody out there from the government is protecting everybody's rights protected in the Constitution. The government does not do that, ladies and gentlemen. And if you think that that is the case, you think the government people get up and say, ooh, well, you know what? We probably violated that guy's constitutional rights. I think we're just going to dismiss this case today. Doesn't happen. They're like, well, there's nothing wrong with this. It's completely reasonable. It's reasonable. It's not until little criminal defense lawyers show up and say, no, oh, that's right. Yeah, that's a pesky thing called the Fourth Amendment. You don't get to rummage through somebody's phone or their house until you find what you're looking for. That's specifically precluded under the Fourth Amendment. And I'm telling you, and I'll say it again, I will say it till I'm blue in the face or I am dead. If anyone is naive enough to think that anyone in the government truly cares about your constitutional rights, you are completely deceiving yourself. They do not. That's why, thank God, we have a court system. And it's usually not until we get to the appellate level and you take away the emotion of the courtroom, the heat of the battle, so to speak, and you have the plain record, and they look at it and say, yeah, you can't do that. But judges want to move their dockets along. They want to appease victims' families that show up. And so they figure, well, maybe, if I rule against him every time, he'll just plead guilty and then there won't be any issue and I won't get appealed. Nobody in the government, ladies and gentlemen, nobody gets there and says, I think we violated somebody's rights today. I think we should give more power back to the individual, the greatest minority of all, I might add. The individual rights. Nobody does it. Nobody in the government. And if anybody thinks that that is the case, I'm telling you, I got some, what is the old saying? I got some, a bridge in Florida, a bridge in New York I'd like to sell you, because that is the most naive thing anybody could possibly do. And if you don't believe it, just go take a stroll, usually in the afternoon when they're doing motions hearings. And when there's motions to litigate, illegal stops, searches, searches of phones. I mean, you can't have a general warrant. You can't say, I want to search everything in Scott's phone. Notice I got the little CrimeTalk sticker there on so I don't lose it. These agents, these officers still write these warrants saying, I want to search the phone for all identifying information, blah, 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 everything. That is a general warrant specifically prohibited under the Fourth Amendment. Come on, guys. We've only been doing this for 247 years or something, and you still can't get it right. That you can't go rummage through the phone, which is protected under California v. Carpenter, I think is the case. United States Supreme Court said, this is the greatest. We store everything in here. The government shouldn't just be like, oh, well, let me take a look at your phone. I see you got arrested here. Let me take, oh, look at that text. Get a warrant, right? They can't go look through your mail. Get a warrant. They can't come into your house. Get a warrant. It's that simple. Well, and most of the time, 99.9% of the time, if the police are knocking on your door, hey, I'd like to ask you some questions. I'd like to come in and take a look around your house. We're from the SCAT team, the drug team or whatever team. If they're coming to talk with you, that usually means they don't have enough to arrest you. Keep your mouth shut. Don't let them in the house. Don't let them. When you say, come on in, take a look around, I got nothing to hide. Really? You know who's been in that house that day? You know what's there? Maybe not. Don't do it. Okay? The founding fathers, I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, if you look, I mean, people say the Constitution was one of the greatest things ever drafted. I will not disagree with that. But the epitome, you got to love the people in the country at the time that the Constitution is being ratified, and they wouldn't do it unless and until the Bill of Rights was approved. They all said no deal if there's not protections for these individual rights. We've talked about this before. Think about it. This country was the first time that we were really going to govern people where it was not a king or a dictator or some sort of monarch. They had somebody just by chosen right. They were born that way with a last name that they were going to be in charge. And look at it. Everything in the past, and we're talking 247 years ago, but what did every dictator, thug, all do when they didn't like what the people were doing, when they felt threatened, right? That's why we have the First Amendment. Can't infringe upon the press, freedom of religion, the right to gather, right to petition your government, all the things that dictator, thugs, despots do all over the world. And then what do they want to do? Oh, they disarm everybody, take away their weapon. Well, we'll just be the only ones with weapons. Why do they do that? Because throughout history, every dictator, despot wanted to take away your guns or your ability to fight the king because he was afraid of revolt. Third Amendment here. What did the British do during the Revolutionary War, prior Revolutionary War? The king would come over and say, hey, Farmer Bob, you're going to be responsible for feeding and quartering these troops. So they're going to sleep in the main house. You can sleep in the barn. In fact, we're going to let the horses, they're going to go up to the church up the hill. Congratulations. Fourth Amendment. What would the king do? We don't like you today. So what are we going to do? Yeah, let's go take a look around the house. Let's go through and rummage through and see what we find. Oh, what's this? Wrote a letter. Didn't like what the king said. How dare you? Arrest him. Search, seizures, warrants, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, due process of law, right? Can't take your life, liberty, or property because the king can say, I'm going to take your property. Appreciate that. Like you make it way, like the way you made that donation to the king. You have to be compensated for your property when the government wants to take it. You have a right to remain silent. Sixth Amendment, right to counsel. Seventh, civil jury trial in the sixth, as well as the seventh for civil cases. Eighth Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment, right? What did every dictator, despot do before that? Lock people up, torture them. Ninth, everything not specifically mentioned. Just because it didn't mention a right doesn't mean that it didn't exist. 10th, everything not specifically reserved to the federal government or specifically enumerated as a power to the federal government is reserved to the states. Can you imagine such an idea? Why? Because every dictator despot said, I'm not going to let these little states control what they do. I'm in charge. You do what I say. Everything goes through central planning. I don't know. I think one could draw lots of examples of what takes place in the world today. Couldn't you now? I don't think you'd have to go that far, even just outside of the United States. But that's what the wisdom of those people, and I'm not talking about the guys that drafted it. I mean, these were local farmers that were saying, we're not voting to ratify that thing. Not unless those protections are put in place. And when stuff goes up to the Supreme Court, you're violating somebody's religious rights. You're violating freedom of speech, freedom of religion. That's where cases are saying the government's still trying to do this. They're still trying to limit your speech. They're still trying to limit your ability to be together. The press, we don't like what they say. Second Amendment, thank God we don't have to worry about quartering of horses, but they're still trying to take away people's guns, right? Second Amendment, the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. It is a fundamental right under the United States Constitution, interpretation by cases that have since come down. It's a fundamental right. You can't pass a law, but yet these people who know what the law is from the highest court in the land say, we don't care. We're going to do it anyway. We're from the government. We can do whatever we want until we go through this process again for the next 10 years while it goes up on appeal. And then what? Oh, you're going to do it? Oh, fine. Because there's never any consequence. Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. How many times has somebody in the government, incompetent, ever lost their jobs? They never do. Heck, most of the time, the incompetent prosecutors, they make them judges, for God's sakes. Just saying. All right, get me all fired up, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just telling you. Just telling you. Yes, those kind words about criminal defense attorneys. There are people out there protecting your rights. And you may not like the dirtbag that did the terrible thing to the woman, the guy, the child, and I get it. But if we let the government railroad the guilty people, they will start railroading innocent people as well because they think and know that they can get away with it. And they just keep coming after you. Oh, we couldn't get you here? Oh, can we let you know about the 10 regulatory bodies that we're going to sick on you if you don't kneel to our will? No, I'm not going to do that. Okay, well, now you're going to get an audit. Oh, we're going to come out and we're going to send OSHA out here and they're going to look at your establishment, your business. Probably got some violations there. Ooh, sounds expensive. Just telling you the games that they play. And I know a lot of people are like, no, my government would never do that. They don't do that. They're good people. They're just me. No, they're a bunch of bureaucrats or career politicians. Nobody should work in the government for more than 5-10 years. Rotate them out. That's the way it used to be. You work for the government. You're there for a little time. You get some experience. You go to the private sector. Nobody worked in the government for a career job. I know people may find that hard to believe. Okay. Wow. We got a little sidetracked there, but boy, do I feel better. Ooh, I don't know about you, Frank. Do you feel any better, Frank? I don't know. Let's see here. Let's go down here to the chats. Let's get to the bottom. Oh, Cheryl has an interesting point. Mass media, as it is today, is a challenge for investigators. It requires them to compete with people who want to release their own information for likes. I can't necessarily disagree with you on that. However, there have been some circumstances where the internet sleuths have found information because, frankly, the police are understaffed, overworked, don't have the resources to do what a lot of people have time to do if they're sitting at home, and they can do that. But they have to do it wisely. Like we talked about earlier, there was information about this car is related to the Idaho college case there. And people were saying, oh, it's the owner of this and they own that and blah, blah. I mean, all kinds of crazy theories that I'm not even going to repeat. And they turned out to be completely wrong, and they were completely unverified. And, you know, the police had to put in their little statement, please stop calling the owner. You got to do it right. Got to do it right. That's right. You want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. Who's going to do it? You. No. You know, little cocktail parties that you don't think about. You know, you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. You want me out there cross-examining that police officer, telling him that you violated somebody's rights. And, you know, you were Mr. Tough Guy when you were out there in your little field, but now you're in my backyard called the courtroom. So answer my question, please. Right? Or when they say, oh, we identified the particular person, you say, you know, let's go through this again. Nobody identified anybody from this fuzzy screenshot. Let's just be clear. Well, that's true. Nobody did that. But that's not what you stated earlier. You said they identified this person. They believe it's the same person, but nobody has done that. So what you told the police or what you put in your affidavit was not accurate, was it, sir? Well, I mean, it was kind of accurate. You want me there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you, if they get away with it once, they'll do it again. And it's all fun and games because not you, but once it eventually is you or your family member, how could this have happened? How could this injustice go on? So anyway, let's see here. Is it pronounced Chai? My dad's best friend, Bobby, is a defense attorney. He gets so much slack when I was growing up running joke that Bobby was a plumber because he unclogs everybody's. That's right. We fix people's problems. Sometimes people's problems can be fixed. Sometimes they can't. Not local. They're bought. They all gather around the same coffee pot, including the judge. Let's see here. Flack, not slack. Okay, I get it. Let's see here. See, the questions come in so fast. It's unfortunate defense attorneys just protecting the law are vilified. But you know what? You know, it's funny. I always tell this joke. My mother-in-law would always, even when I was in the military, I got out and I was going to be like, hey, I'm going to start my own practice. I'm going to be a defense lawyer. And, she was very kind of proper and, had to be respectable, so to speak, and whatever. And I was like, well, what I am doing is respectable. I'm taking care of your grandchildren and your daughter. But every time I would see her, I swear to God. So, ever thought about becoming a judge? Nope. Don't want to do it. The biggest thing is, first of all, I said, well, there'd be a pay cut involved. But why would I want to do that? Because, those judges just have the same pressure. And frankly, talk about a lonely job. I have friends that have become judges, and they say the worst part of the job is the solitariness of it because they don't get to interact with people because they're the judge. The attorneys aren't going to come up and talk to them because they're the judge. I'm not going to hang out and invite you to the parties because you're the judge. Don't want to be recused. Don't want to be too close. Don't want to do that. Not that I need a bunch of friends. Frankly, I don't need that many. And frankly, it just wouldn't be that fun. I mean, if you're a county court judge doing misdemeanors, I would rather put a hot fork in my eye, because I think there's only a certain number of cases that one could hear guilty pleas on DUIs and DVs with the occasional misdemeanor unlawful sex counts. I would be like, are you kidding me? Oh my God, it'd be so mind-numbing boring. District court, if you're in the state court, you're overworked. No staff. You have judges research and writing all of their opinions. Maybe you have, one or two legal clerks to put in minute orders and, things like that, coordinate with the jail, bringing people over, or you wind up doing civil work all day long. Oh, is this a question of fact, or can I grant motion for summary judgment? All right, let's set 10 trials and 9 of them are going to plead out or, resolve the day before trial. Wouldn't want to do it. Maybe if you were a U.S. District Court judge, maybe, because you get the staff, you get the nice courtroom, lots of responsibility, but that would only be it. But I would not, I just couldn't see myself getting through the nomination process. Let's look at this. Mary, wow. I don't hate you little criminal defense attorneys. I've used you before. So do you think the issue with the jury during Russell Lafitte's trial will cause an actual retrial? For those who are familiar, Russell Lafitte is kind of he's associated with Alex Murdaugh's case. He was the banker, I think CEO or CFO at the Palmetto State Bank that was doing some inappropriate things with clients' funds and with Alex Murdaugh. He went to trial. There was jury was deliberating. Apparently one of the jurors, I think as I understood it, basically was not going along with what everybody else said. So they removed that particular juror, bringing another person, and then all of a sudden, oh, it's a miracle. We have a miracle. We have a jury. We have a verdict. We don't have to do it again. I don't think, Mary, that Mr. Lafitte will get a new trial. And the reason why is then the judge would have to admit that he made a mistake. And district court judges don't admit mistakes. That's what appellate courts are for. So I would not hold my breath if I was Mr. Lafitte or his attorneys. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. I think I haven't read it yet, but Frank, I think, just stated today that speaking of juries and issues with juries, the Scott Peterson case, he is not going to get a retrial, which doesn't surprise me. He got all the relief that he wanted. I still think the juror engaged in misconduct, didn't disclose things, wrote a book about it. Come on, man. Jeez, that's like being a member of getting in politics, being a poor pauper and leaving rich. I want to get on this jury because I want to write my book about it. Sure, I've been the victim of domestic violence before, but and this is a domestic violence case. Sure, I can be fair and impartial, but let's just avoid that. I won't mention it at all. Seriously, do you really think that the defense attorneys would have left a female on with a DV past where she's been the victim if they had known that? Probably not. Probably not, ladies and gentlemen, but that's just the way it goes. And of course, I'm sure Mr. Peterson will appeal. And in 5 years or so, we'll probably get a decision, but they'll say, hey, you killed your wife and young child. You had the death penalty. We made that go away for you. What more do you want from us? God, we've been throwing you a bone here and there. And yet you ask for more. How dare you? No, just asking for a fair trial. Can you imagine such a thing? How dare you, a defendant, ask for that? Jeez. Well, here's an interesting question. Susie, I need to talk to someone about my son getting life in prison without parole, without evidence except hearsay evidence, and it was lies, and our lawyer did not call any one of his defense, I'm assuming witnesses, after telling us he had 42 people to call. After 3.5 days, the state rested, and so did our lawyer. And the lawyer had another murder case in Shelby, North Carolina, and the next week, the lawyer had another murder case in Gaston Gazette. In the Gaston Gazette, it said a lawyer had to take 2 weeks between trials. We cannot have. Well, Susie, obviously, I'm sorry that your son got that, but you need to talk to an attorney there in North Carolina, if that's where the trial took place, from what I can tell, and need to get a good appellate attorney, and they need to inquire about whether there are any potential issues for post-conviction relief, which would basically mean the attorney was ineffective. Now, I don't know if he had 42 witnesses to call or if there were 42, what have you, but you're going to run into, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, a tactical decision. The defendant is the one that makes a couple of important decisions. One, who is the attorney he's going to get, assuming he hires his own, whether he's court appointed or public defender, you don't get to choose. Second, whether there's going to be a plea bargain or whether there's a trial. That is ultimately a decision of the defendant. And then ultimately a trial, the next big one, the final one, is whether the defendant is going to testify or to remain silent. Everything else is the decision of the attorney, what motions to file. Now, certainly you want to consult with the attorney or with the client, explain what you're doing so that they feel comfortable. And then you also, they decide whether they're going to plead guilty or not as well. And then if they go to trial, whether they're going to testify or not. Now, I'm not going to say I know how it works in North Carolina. Like the federal system, they're like, you got any witnesses you want to call? Nope, we're done. We rest. But in state court, the court inquires here and says, hey, Mr. Defendant, just want to make this very clear so you don't come back and say, did your attorney make any promises, guarantees? You understand it's your right to testify. It's your right to say anything you want on the witness stand, assuming it's legal and competent evidence. Yep. And court will inquire of that. But the attorney makes all the other decisions, what witnesses, what motions, what questions to ask. Those are ultimately, in the realm of the attorney department. And if that attorney can say for tactical reasons, and I've done this before too, where I've had not 42 witnesses, but I had a couple witnesses lined up, and you talk to the client and say, you know what, I'm telling you, less is more. I don't believe the prosecution has proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt. I think we rest. Because I'm telling you, I have won more trials where we present no evidence other than cross-examine witnesses, and we've won. Maybe a self-defense case where somebody has to get up there, maybe sex assault case where somebody has like, nope, didn't do it, et cetera, et cetera. 99.9% of the time, you have a much better chance of winning if the defendant doesn't take the stand, because jurors look at, this is the evidence that we've received. We need to make our decision based upon that. When the defendant testifies, all of a sudden his credibility comes into play, and they stop looking at the evidence and say, that guy's got some beady little eyes. Did you see the way he scratched his nose? I don't like people to scratch their nose that way. You think I'm joking? I've heard jurors explain that that's what they did. Okay. So I'm sorry, Susie, that your son lost his case. Seriously, that's like losing a child. But talk to an appellate attorney. I don't know if your son's attorney was court appointed, like the public defender or private counsel. But you want to try to get them the best appellate attorney they can. Most appellate attorneys, even at the public defender's office, are very, 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 very good. and it doesn't get any less expensive. A lot of people are like, well, I'm going to go with the public defender. And if I lose my case, then I'll get an appellate attorney that's really good. But the facts are already made. The bed has already been made. And the appellate attorney can't undo something if it's not on the record. If somebody didn't object, it doesn't exist. Just like I tell my associates, if it's not on paper, it didn't happen. Same thing on a record. If it's not on the record, it didn't exist. It didn't happen. So sorry about that. Hopefully, Susie, that will give you a little bit of advice. I would go talk to an attorney ASAP. Let's see here. Let me look at a couple more questions. You keep saying no one in the government cares about your rights of the criminals, pretty much, till an appeal. That's terrible. I was hoping I was wrong when I thought that. No. Yeah, I mean, it's true. That's what your line street lawyer, criminal defense attorney is doing. They're the only ones that are protecting your rights. You think the prosecution? Come on. Really? You think the prosecutor, you know what? I mean, occasionally they dismiss a case up front, but if they've got a witness that's coming to court, usually because they can't find a witness, they'll dismiss it. But for the most part, I mean, I've seen prosecutors, when somebody goes in pro se and then you come back later and like, they can't prove this case. But yet the prosecutor's like, well, why don't you go ahead and we'll make you an offer anyway. No, and I can't prove this case. Let me see if you'll plead guilty, because you don't know what you're doing. That's why I always tell everybody, whether you hire me or somebody else, you always get yourself an attorney when you go to court. How do you know? You're going to trust the prosecutor whose job? Just point of note. Remember what at the beginning of the show, we read the report from the Moscow police? Typical government. Ticky-tacky. We have 5,426 leads. We have 4,127 tips. You can tell that guy is a career government guy. And how do I know that? Because when I was a young lad as an attorney in the United States Marine Corps, what did we do? We kept track of every statistic. And now you see the government, what do they do? We handled 4,762 felonies, 1,226 misdemeanor cases, of which that 96% resulted in some sort of disposition favorable to the prosecution. The other, they keep a little ticky-tacky. Oh, we got one case, we get two cases. That's how they get their money. That's how they justify their existence. Oh, we're so busy. We are working on these cases. Busy. We got 4,526 tips we got to follow up on. We're busy. People don't bother us. We're busy. And we probably need more money because we're so busy. Yeah. I don't care how many tips you have. I think I'm probably like most of the public. I just want results. But that's another thing when you get to the government. The government people, what do they ever accomplish? Very little to anything. Ever. It's like a lot different than the private sector. You get results or you're out. You produce good results or you're out. Nobody cares. Well, we had this many ticky-tacky things, so we didn't get to your case today. Tell that to your client. It may work a couple times. Hey, man, I've been in trial. I'll be in trial in 3 days, and I'll work on your case. I can accept that. In the private sector, though, they want to call back. Oh, it's 8 o'clock at night. I'll call you back. They're paying you large sums of money. Like, hey, you want to have this 6-minute conversation that's going to cost you $60? Okay. But they expect results. So instead of results, what did the Idaho Moscow Police Department tell us? We're so busy. Focus over this. Focus on this. We're so busy. Results, we got nothing. Busy. Just saying. Just saying. Hilda wants to know, is there any client whom you would not defend based on the crime allegedly committed? Nope. Hopefully that answers your question. Listen, everyone is entitled to a defense, right? Sixth Amendment right to counsel. Heck, the United States Supreme Court, in the case of Gideon v. Wainwright, I think it was 1961, because you didn't have a right to an attorney until that point. If you couldn't afford one, sucks being you. But maybe it was a serious enough case, they'd let you have a private attorney if he's willing to, do it for a pittance. So Mr. Wainwright, I think he was down in Florida, literally did an appeal saying, hey, because I want an attorney. Judge said no. He writes an appeal. It gets denied at the district court level, the court appellate level, and he appeals to the United States Supreme Court and said, hey, I'm indigent. I have no money. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not familiar with those big city words. I need a lawyer. And the Supreme Court said, we agree. We agree. You have a right to an attorney, even if you can't afford one. It's a big deal. Big deal. So yes, everyone is entitled to a defense. I cannot think of a single case that I have turned down because of what somebody did. I've turned down cases because of who somebody, well, let's put this, how they have treated perhaps previous attorneys. And in my younger days, and even to this day, we still do some court-appointed work. And I usually get, for lack of a better term, the more difficult cases. I get the call from the powers that be, like, hey, Scott, got a real difficult case, difficult client. Would you mind taking this case? I know it's on the other side of the state, but we know you can jump into CrimeTalk 1. You could get over there rather quickly. Would you take it? Nobody else will take the guy's case, or he's gotten through him. Sure. Let's go. Let's go do it. I got one the other day, and you're thinking, I've got enough private cases, but everybody's entitled to an attorney, and it's still my way of making sure that, I'm kind of doing the right thing. I get one that says the guy clearly, I don't want to get into many details, but let's just say apparently he's got some issues with female attorneys. The note was, is there any way we could get somebody to handle this client, this difficult client? But we need a male attorney. So I'm assuming you probably want somebody like me that can go in and say, listen, dude, I don't really care what you did. Let's look at the facts. Let's do it. And I'm going to tell them the good, the bad, and the ugly, just like I would any case whatsoever. So to answer that question, no. But I've had clients, and I swear to God, I had this client, still a joke. I swear to God, this particular client was the worst client in my life. But I kept thinking, instead of just withdrawing off the case, no, because I don't like to do that. It's just difficult. We're going to get through this, and then it'll be over. And we go to a jury trial, and you should have called this witness. You didn't ask this right question. Blah 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 blah. Literally, during closing argument, she's like, "I am walking out of here. She is a much better attorney than you. I am going to get convicted." And I'm like, "Sit down." Jury comes back, not guilty. "Oh, sorry, Scott. I'm so sorry. I was just scared. I was blah, blah, blah." You know what? Just being scared, all that stuff doesn't give you the right to be whatever you are. And I swear to God, this particular person got in trouble again years later. And frankly, a much more serious case. And the attorney, I don't know if it was a civil attorney or whomever, called me up and said, "Hey, this particular client really loves you. You're the best. We need you on this team, et cetera, et cetera. I said, oh, really? That's what she said. Really? I said, I'm sure we can represent that particular client, but the retainer is $1 million. And the attorney chuckled on the other side. I said, no. He goes, that's funny. So what's your retainer? I said, $1 million. And he goes, why would you want $1 million? It's not that going to be that complicated. I said, because that's what is going to have to deal with this particular individual. I'm going to have to hire all new staff because they said they would quit if we ever represented this particular person again. And I would probably need it because I was going to have to move out. This person was so horrible. So I'll represent it. It's not what they did that's so bad. I mean, it's obviously bad, but we're protecting their rights. But yeah, if you're a jerk, if you're completely unreasonable, nothing says I have to represent you. Nothing says I have to represent you. Seabreeze wants to know, Scott, would you represent the killer? I know you're a defense attorney. Yes. Have dollars, will travel. Let's see here. Whatever, and heavy gloves on. Not saying he did. Yeah, there's so many things. All right, man. Can you believe how fast? Well, we had to go a little longer tonight because why? I wasn't here last week, so I apologize. Let's see if there's any good questions here. Let's see here. I wish just once we could see a video of Scott in court. Who knows? Maybe someday. There's that old case out there, but it was a long, long time ago. Do you remember what the name of that video was? Frank, I think we put it up, but it was when it was called, there's a show, it was years ago, called In the Jury Room, where they followed both the defense and the prosecution around, and I represented a woman charged with the death of her young child. The boyfriend pled guilty, got like 32 years, destroyed him on cross-examination, and my client was found not guilty of the serious charges, found guilty of one misdemeanor count. But that was a long time ago. That was such ancient history. I can't believe it. But it's in one of our videos that we have. It's something about my client or something along those lines. But what's the name of that? I don't know. Frank, he'll find it. He's got a detailed index here. If we get it up, we'll put it there. But if you can't find it, then guess what? You have to go back and watch every one of our videos to find it. But it was something about, I think it was after the Chris Watts case, I think, that we uploaded it or something along those lines. There was a case that we did down in Montrose, but it wasn't recorded like you can do, but it was recent. Let's see. Yeah, it's going to get cold out there. I think tomorrow here in Colorado is going to be Thursday is going to be like a high of 3 below. That's nothing like people, up there in North Dakota, Montana, where it's like 16 below in the middle of the day right now. Oh, I hate the cold. Dusty Demons. What do you think about First Amendment auditors? They say they are testing our rights, but they seem to cause more issues. I'm not sure what you mean by First Amendment auditors. I'm a free speech kind of guy. Frankly, if the free speech, the people are out there saying weird, crazy stuff, I want to know who they are so I can avoid them. Don't think we should necessarily ban, anything because it's a slippery slope. You let the government ban this particular thing, then, well, that's just as bad. We're not going to ban anything except for this. And then the exceptions keep eating up the rule, and then everything gets banned. Okay. I've said this before and I will say it again. Nobody has a right to not be offended. Okay. If somebody is a flat earther and thinks the world is flat, by God, I want to know that, so that when they come to apply to work for me, I don't hire them, that I don't go associate with them, because they're going to waste my time trying to convince me that the world is flat. Okay. I mean, if you wanted to get rid of stupid ideas, that is one of them. Okay. But I wouldn't ban it. I want to know who the stupid people are. I want to know who, if somebody is a bigot or a racist, I want to know who those people are, so I don't have to go associate with them. Just the way it is. I don't want to go have to do business with them. So to ban people, you think they're not going to go about it some way or the other? Certainly don't think the government should do it. Certainly don't think, the FBI should be telling Twitter to do it. God, what if there was only a word? What would we call that word where the government directs the private industry to do things a certain way for their behalf? Gosh, what was that word? Oh, that's right. Fascism. That's right. Oh, yeah. Where the government's like, well, we can't do that. So they call up their buddies at a particular private organization and say, will you please do for us what we can't do ourselves? Yeah. Don't worry, we'll pay you. You'll be heavily rewarded, handsomely rewarded. Good for you. Yeah. That, ladies and gentlemen, is fascism, when the government works with the private sector to get to do what they can't do themselves. Free speech, people. Free speech. It's a good thing. Oh, this is it. CrimeTalk changed my life. Scott answers all my impossible to answer questions. Well, I'm glad I was able to do that, Bethany. I was able to do that for you. I've been accused of some very, very serious things, and I spoke to the police. They don't believe the ex who actually hurt me very badly physically in reality. Well, I'm glad they, believe you, but it just depends. Scott, your thoughts about Guantanamo Bay? Ooh, is this law or LA? Well, little known fact, a guy that I knew in the Marine Corps, I was just getting out. I got out in 2000 from the Marine Corps. He actually wrote a book. It's sitting actually on my window sill in my office. It's a book written by a guy by the name of Dan Morey. You should go do it. It's his experience representing an Australian who was sent to Guantanamo. And Dan is a great guy. He was one of the first guys I met when I got to my duty station there in Parris Island, South Carolina, in lovely Beaufort, South Carolina. Just a stone's throw away from the Murdoch shenanigans that are going on. And then a guy that I know, who still occasionally keep in touch with, a guy by the name of John Baker. He was the chief defense counsel of the Marine Corps right before he retired this past year, I think, maybe a little longer. But he was held in contempt by a judge, which is pretty ballsy when I think a colonel holds a general in contempt, because he said, if my attorneys have an ethical conflict, they cannot remain on the case. Sorry to interfere with your trial schedule, judge, but if there's an ethical conflict, I'm not making my attorneys violate their ethical conduct rules for you. So the judge said, you're in contempt. John Baker went back to his little quarters there in Guantanamo Bay, and I think enjoyed an alcohol, a nice adult beverage, his words, and a cigar down there in Cuba. And, it was good. So there's lots of things. There's lots of legal issues as it relates to Guantanamo Bay. Now, I truly believe you can't hold anybody indefinitely but these were enemy combatants. It's not like they're criminals in the sense of, oh, they came into the United States and they were going to blow something up, right? They were captured on the battlefield in Iraq and Pakistan and all that kind of stuff. Not Pakistan, Afghanistan, excuse me, in Afghanistan. Just going on a limb here, I just don't see how the rationale they got to them, the fact that they're entitled to all these rights and they came up with these commissions and yada, yada, yada. It should have been a military tribunal as quickly as possible. Same thing. If you got the evidence, and you got the evidence and you do, you try them in swift justice. But then, I don't know. Guantanamo's tricky. It's ugly. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know if there's any good answers. I mean, I think we still have people there, we're holding people there. But some of them are bad dudes, but they're enemy combatants. What is it? 22 years now, 21 years since 9/11. What are you going to do? Send them home and have them do it all over again? Well, I guess that's what we do in our system, right? We know they're bad dudes. They're going to go right back. A lot of them we've released go right back. So I don't know. But I've had a lot of people. I didn't personally work on one of those, but it was interesting. And I think everybody down there that worked on those cases, the defense counsel certainly tried to protect the rights of the individuals that were afforded to them under the military tribunal. So hopefully that answers your question about that. Let's see, you've got another questions. Yeah, it was called In the Jury Room. The lovely Miss Kristen reminded me that. And it was the State v. Trujillo. You can also go to abcnews.go.co.com. Let's see here. Let's see here. All right, good jump down here. So anyway, not to, beat too heavily against the government, but let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, they're not always your friend. That's why I'm a firm believer is you have to protect yourself. You have to be prepared. You have to know your rights, but listen to your lawyer. Your lawyers are going to try to do the best job that they can for you. Let's see here. Oh, Jen Lowe, good point. We're going to go be Patreon, go do our Patreon show. Want to be a Crime Talk Patreon? Now's the time to sign up. And guess what? Then we have, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, you can call in. We can have a conversation. Seabreeze, really, Seabreeze, do you know something that we don't know? But hey, you do us a $19.99 super chat. We're gonna, if I see it, we're definitely gonna do this. Mr. Scott, if the killer of the Idaho murders came to you, would you represent them? Sure, we'd still need local counsel because I'm not licensed in Idaho. We'd have to move pro hoc vice and make sure they keep their mouth shut because as of right now, they got nothing. And we'd have to wait and see what they have. But yeah, short of confession or some sort of DNA at this point, I think is going to be pretty darn tough to do. Seabreeze, you asked me this question several times. I'm starting to think if you know something, call me, okay? Just kidding. I mean, you can call me, but you know what I'm saying? All right. Well, look at that. We've gone way long, but I owed it to you because the bottom line is I missed last week. I apologize. Hopefully it'll never happen again. Can't promise it will because I don't make promises that I can't keep. But I'm going to do my best to make sure it doesn't happen again. All right. And literally it's because, what was it? I had a horrendous trial schedule coming up first part in January. I have this duty thing that I had to do this week. So I had to cover for court things. And it just messed up the whole holiday schedule. Usually try to go away during Christmas because that's the week kind of the courts are really slow and closed. And then all hell breaks loose after the first of the year. And I had 2 trials back to back, and they both got continued from the first couple of weeks in January. So that's a good thing. Although in some cases you just want to go and try them and get it over with. But we'll go from there. Perry Mason, best show ever. Miss Kristen, the love of Miss Kristen would be Dell Street. All right, everyone. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Remember the drill. Subscribe if you haven't. Like if you do. Leave us a comment and tell a friend. Hit that little bell so you get notifications. And go sign up to be a Patreon. I mean, it's only a couple of bucks I think you can sign up for. It's not like we're living large on our Patreon. I assure you not. But it all helps and, makes it worthwhile. And maybe it'll convince me one of these days that I could go do something other than defend criminals. Maybe I could just talk about how I defended criminals and do that and, wrongfully accused. Because, my firm has a very, very strong policy of only representing innocent people. Okay. I've never had a guilty client my entire 28 years. Got that bridge for sale. All right. Have a wonderful night. Thanks for watching. We'll see all of our Patreons in just a few minutes.